Tech Incubator, UCSB's Institute for Energy Efficiency, Southern California Edison, and the Green Building Council of the Central Coast. So let's just give those folks a round of applause if you don't mind. As you've noticed, we also have quite a few energy storage companies represented in this room, and there is so much expertise among these folks. So we really couldn't do this without these people. And given that there are so many experts in the room, I have something to ask, and that is that as we go through our agenda, which I just skipped over, but I'll come back to, I'm going to ask that you do hold your questions, because at the end of this event, we'll have about half an hour to really touch base with all of the different experts in the room and get all of your questions answered. However, we may not cover everything tonight that is really pertinent that you may have some expertise on. And so I have a rather small but glorious little board here that says announcements. And if you think that at the end of this presentation you have about 1 minute, that's it, 1 minute of something that you really think is important for everyone in this room, then I will call those folks to come and spend a minute at the mic. So just if you really feel like that's something that's you, then you can come up and put your name here. And one person I'd really like to hear from is someone who has energy storage on your home. So maybe if you work up the guts to do that during this presentation, we'd love to hear from you. All right, so here's a quick rundown of what you can expect. We're going to start with setting the stage a little bit. We'll run through learning about PSPS events from Edison, and then walk through your options for what you can do if your power gets shut off. And then we'll get into some more technical details. So that's what we're looking at. And I am very pleased. I'm going to call this gentleman a keynote speaker, because why not? Robert Lewin recently retired from the Santa Barbara County Office of Emergency Management. Before that, he spent 37 years with CAL FIRE and was the fire chief for CAL FIRE San Luis Obispo. And now he offers energy management consulting services. We are so lucky to have him here. Please join me in welcoming Rob Lewin.
Thank you, April. And I don't do energy consulting, I do emergency consulting, emergency management, but that's, of course, what we're here for is energy. I feel electrified. It's powerful in here. Hopefully we can generate some thought. Okay, we got them all out now. And it's good to see the supervisor here who's always supportive of this. Good to see you, Doss. Thanks. Okay, I only have a few minutes and I want to go through some things super quick here. Well, let me back up one thing here. By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail, Benjamin Franklin. Okay, we have some overarching issues right now due to climate change. And you can see wherever you are in the globe, things are happening because of the climate extremes that we're faced with. And then I threw in earthquakes too. So we need to be ready for whatever's coming our way. And we need to be more ready now than we've ever been, because we're experiencing things that we don't actually have on our slide deck. So that slide's a little blurry, but John F. Kennedy had a quote, and I'm not going to try to read it off there because I can't. Is there a way we can dim the lights a bit, or at the front here, or we're there now on that? Yeah, that's it. Okay. There. Yeah. There was a Chinese a parable that says essentially that in a crisis, it's also an opportunity. And that's what we need to do right now. We have two missions. We need to stop and reverse climate change. That's part of why we're all here, of course. But we also need to be prepared and come up with the mitigations and the preparedness things that we can do because of climate change. So it's two things. We can't give up on trying to fight it, but we also need to be prepared. This is our electrical grid in California, and we've all learned to rely on it. And you can see from the different colors, these are the providers of the electricity that we all enjoy. And we had become to a place where we just had a high expectation that it was always going to be there for us. Remember in the earthquake in 1994, I found myself on a fire engine at 2 o'clock in the morning, only 18 hours following the earthquake, and the lights came on in Santa Clarita, where there was a huge amount of devastation. That was amazing to me that we lived in a place where the electricity could come on that quick. We've grown to rely on that kind of reliability. But all utilities can be impacted by some kind of a disaster, some kind of an event. And here's some photographs from the Montecito debris flow. And you can see the huge impacts. All of the utilities in that area were wiped out. And to the credit of all of the utilities workers, they got that all back on by the 27th. Everyone was back home in Montecito because the utilities were back in order. This is the grid within Santa Barbara County. We live in a particularly difficult place because we're at the edges of two providers, PG&E to the north and Southern California Edison to the south. Because of that, we live in a cul-de-sac effect. You can see that the lines that are coming up from the south are like a cul-de-sac, and the same for the ones from the north. They don't touch. It would be nice if they were merged together so that we had power, whether it was coming from the north or the south, but this is our predicament. And when the Thomas fire occurred, you can see the perimeter of the first day of the fire. You can see how it impacted the choke point of the power lines, the transmission lines that were coming from the south. And therefore, that night on December 4th, we were all without power, 200,000 of us, for 6 hours. How many remember that? And in the Emergency Operations Center, our generator didn't work. At the dispatch center, our generator didn't work. It tried to work. It kept trying to kick on, but we were getting surges. And it just said, I'm not doing it anymore. We talked to our generator. And so we were able to manually start both of those and get going. The hospital didn't have power, and of course, all of us didn't have power as well. So I'm going to go through, blow by this some facts about that, because I want to move into this. I want to ask you all a question now. If you knew an earthquake was going to occur tomorrow morning, which will rupture gas lines, collapse buildings, start fires, or take out utilities, communication, and all road overpasses, how would you spend your day? Anyone want to offer up something? What's that? Packing. Hopefully packing the right things, right? And do you know what those are? Have you thought about what it is I'm going to pack? Yes, sir.
Turning off gas everywhere.
Okay, so if we turn, the gas utilities will tell you that we don't want you to turn off the gas unless you smell gas. Because as we remember from the Montecito debris flow, it took them weeks to turn the gas back on at every individual property. So we might or might not want to do that. We want to get the word, of course, when the event occurs, we're gonna of course do what we are told to do for the utilities. Anybody else have one other thing? Yes, ma'am.
Save up some water.
Good. Fill up your bathtubs, every container you have, get the water ready so you have it. Okay, there are things that are obvious and there's things that are less obvious that won't work when the electricity goes out. And so these are the things that you want to do. One thing that I'm going to point out here is coffee. When this became a crisis up in Santa Rosa recently, I had friends and they told me the most difficult thing was they couldn't make coffee and they were having, reaction to that. Right? They weren't electrified or energized. So if you have, I'm going to go by this one so we can keep going here. Uh-oh. Okay, so some of the things that we want to think about now is what we can do, of course, to prepare ourselves for what's about to occur. And so some of the things I want you to take away from here tonight are what is it you can do within your own family. We used to say you need to be prepared for 3 days. Now you need to be prepared for 5 to 7 days during these PSPSs. So this is a good deal longer. But the other thing I want to leave you with is that we have to have hope. We don't want to be victims. We want to be survivors, just like John F. Kennedy was trying to say in the beginning here, is that this is our opportunity to change the way we've been doing everything for a better way of doing everything. And so the opportunity tonight is incredible, right? We're all together here because we're having this realization that not only, it isn't just about electricity, tonight is, but it's all in our lives about how we can look forward and be prepared for what's coming our way, regardless of what event happens. Are you with me? All right. So we have some good speakers tonight, and I hope we'll have a good evening learning a lot tonight. I just wanted to close that I am a solar user. I have solar on my roof. So I hope you do too. Not yet.
All right, sorry about that technical difficulty. Thank you so much, Rob. Now, please join me in welcoming our next speaker. Sorry, I'm just going through the slides. You didn't get to show everyone. Rhonda Guthrie from Southern California Edison.
Thank you, April, and thank you for hosting this wonderful event. Edison just released our Pathway 2045 to help us get to carbon neutrality by 2045. So it's great to see all of you here doing your part to learn more about how we can get there. We also recently just selected all energy storage projects to provide reliable service to you in this coastal area. So thank you again. I only have a short amount of time to let you know a little bit about our wildfire mitigation efforts and our public safety power shutoff protocol. So I'm going to get through these slides a little quickly. As Rob alluded to, due to climate change, drought, bark beetle infestation, and a number of other reasons, we've been experiencing some devastating wildfires that I know is no news to everybody in this room. In recent years, and you'll see 10 of the 20 most destructive wildfires in the state have happened since 2015, and 8 of those 10 just in the last 2 years. So something needs to be done, and the utilities are doing our part to try to help with that. This is a map of high fire risk area in Santa Barbara County. There's a few different tiers represented here. The red is the most extreme risk of utility-associated wildfire, and the gold is tier 2. The main point, as you can see, is most all of our service territory within Santa Barbara County is considered to be within a high fire risk area. We filed our wildfire mitigation plan as a part of SB 901 earlier this year, and it contains a lot of operational and infrastructure improvements to our system. Talk a little bit more about this, or I may or may not have time, so just running down here, we've had enhanced inspections that we've done on all of our equipment located within high fire risk areas. I'll talk definitely more about our PSPS protocol. Situational awareness, this is installing HD cameras and weather stations all throughout our service territory. And vegetation management, making sure that vegetation and trees do not come into contact with our lines. On the big part of the infrastructure, I think is actually on this next slide. I actually have an example in the back. We are looking to put covered conductor, insulate our bare wire in a lot of these high fire risk areas. If you'd like to see an example of that, I have it at the table in the back. We've already installed about 300 miles of this covered conductor and are looking to install about 5,000 miles over the next few years. Also other new technologies, faster acting fuses and reclosers that we're installing on our system to make it safer. I talked about the enhanced overhead inspections. We've completed all of our ground level inspections actually several months ago, and we're now conducting both helicopter and drone inspections of our equipment. You can only see so much from the ground, so we're finding that we can see a lot more from above with the helicopters and drones and any issues that we need to remediate with our equipment. This talks about the weather stations. We've installed hundreds throughout our service territory and the HD cameras. All of this information is fed to our emergency operations center that's located in Irwindale. We have meteorologists on staff, we have a fire scientist on staff, and all of this information gets compiled when we determine whether or not we need to institute a public safety power shutoff. Public safety power shutoff. You've either now experienced one, you've got notified about one, or you've read about them, I'm sure, at this point. So it is the proactive de-energization during extreme fire risk weather, when there's a combination of high winds, low humidity, and red flags would be an example of when we might institute a PSPS. There are a lot of decision points, as I mentioned, based on all of the situational awareness data that we collect. Also real-time observations from our personnel, trained personnel on the ground that are able to report back and say, yes, there's definitely debris and trees and things that are in danger of flying into our lines. And we also work very closely with our first responders and emergency managers on the ground level to get their input on what is happening in the community. So this is the timeline we filed as part of our wildfire mitigation plan on how we hope to be able to notify our customers when we do have to institute a public safety power shutoff. You know, there's kind of the 4 to 7 days in advance, kind of seeing this weather pattern forming, trying to understand what's going on with the weather pattern. 3 days out, if we still believe that there's danger out there, we will activate our incident management team out of our EOC in Irwindale. 2 days ahead, assuming the weather pattern stays the same, we will begin to notify our cities and counties and first responders, water districts, hospitals, some of those essential services that we all rely on with 2 days in advance. And we will notify those agencies I just mentioned first, because we know once we start notifying the general public, those will be where the first calls go to. After that initial notification to our public agencies, we will then begin to notify our customers. And that's, again, 48 hours in advance. 1 day ahead, we will repeat that same process. And then the third notification you would get is that the power went out. And some people say, well, we know our power went out. Why do you need to notify us? Really, we want to let you know that we turned your power off. So our call center isn't inundated with calls. So that would be a third notification you would get. And then the fourth notification would be when we restore power. Something to note here, we will not restore power until we manually inspect that entire circuit and make sure that it is safe to do so, that there are no tree limbs or anything in that line that could spark a fire once we re-energize. Again, like Rob said, we highly encourage all of you to have a plan, be prepared. A number of disasters can come our way, a number of reasons that outages can happen, not just a PSPS. So thank you all for being here to learn about this and see what you can do to be part of the solution. The last slide I have here is just some websites that can help you with helpful information. The main thing that I want to point out here is we can't notify you unless we have your updated contact information. So please, if update your contact information with your utility so we can make sure to have contact you. And that goes for any outage that you can be aware of. I think that's all I have.
All right, thank you very much, Rondi. So let's talk about what your options are during one of these potential public safety power shutoffs or anytime your power goes off. To begin, does anyone in the room already have solar? Fantastic. Bad news, it's gonna not really do much for you if the power gets shut off. Does anyone in the room already have a battery? Okay, so we know where to go to get coffee. Everyone taking notes there. So most of the rest of our presentation will be focused on solutions for folks who have solar or who want to get solar and to add battery storage. But really, it starts with some pretty basic preparation that we've already covered. Hopefully you have some of these low-tech solutions. I would like to just do a brief call out that we have a great solar charging solution here. Unite to Light has a table here and they have some more information here. So of course this is a very small charging your cell phone, that sort of thing, but just one tool to have in your toolkit. So going down here, the next option that comes to people's mind quite regularly is a generator. And so my organization and folks that have worked to put on this event have quite a bit of concern about the air quality impacts, the greenhouse gas impacts, and just really the investment in this technology and in a generator when there are some other options. So in preparing for this presentation, I learned there's quite a few types of generators out there, and some are certainly better than others. But the Santa Barbara Air Pollution Control District is here and wants to remind us that burning diesel is really kind of the pits and has some definite health impacts. And they have some helpful cards here that remind us that there are better solutions. Kind of hard to read there, but they point out that battery and solar generators are the best option. So really, what is a battery generator? Well, a battery generator is basically a small device that's a battery that's portable, and you can just plug it into your wall, and that will provide some energy when the power gets shut off. So just a couple of examples here. I'm in no way endorsing, for the record, Community Environmental Council is in no way endorsing any products that we mention here or any companies represented here, but just wanted to show you some options. So down in the corner, the Delta 1300 claims that it can power a large fridge for 10 hours. So what happens when that portable device runs out of power? Well, they also sell lightweight solar panels that you can just unfold, set up in your backyard, and then recharge that system there. So this could be a great option if solar just isn't right for your home. Maybe you're a renter, or you need for some other reason solar doesn't work for you. All right, so let's say you do have solar. There's a couple of different ways to think about pairing batteries with your built-in solar. And the first way to think of this is just for backup. So this is a solution that you're only going to use very rarely, right, Rondi? Very rarely when our power gets shut off for whatever reason. And in this type of situation, there have been batteries on the market that have been used in off-grid situations for many years, and lead-acid batteries can actually be a great solution and a very highly recyclable solution if you are really only going to be using this battery system when the power goes out. So a little bit more affordable than some other options that are a little bit more popular these days. So this second idea is a load shifting battery. And so this concept is a battery that you will be storing with energy every day from the solar on your roof, and then you'll be using some of that energy in the evening instead of buying all of your energy directly from the grid. And so we see this as the best option from a climate crisis perspective. It just rolls right off the tongue, doesn't it? And that's because you're avoiding the purchase of electricity from the grid when the grid power is most dirty. So when it has a higher percentage of natural gas. So some options for this type of battery that again are really good at getting stored up with energy and then cycling on a daily basis. So I'm sure you've heard of many of these. The Powerwall is a type of this one. We also have Simplify in the room, and I think that pretty much all of these batteries are sold by, I'm seeing some nods from our installers in the room, are being sold. So if any of these products is interesting to you, we can explore that. So diving into this a bit deeper, what is this load shifting? Well, you can see here, this kind of graph here might be the energy demand of your house. So you can see in the morning you're using your electricity, in the evening you come home and use your electricity. When you have solar, you're able to take care of that midday load quite easily, and you actually have excess solar. So that energy is going back online. And for all you solar users out there, what's that called? Net energy metering. Great. Okay. We should have practiced. So when that energy goes back onto the grid, you get a monetary credit for each kilowatt hour, and that monetary credit is based on the cost of that energy that you would have paid at that time. So that's without load shifting. Let's add a battery to this equation. So you can see here, you still have your load, right? Your house's energy load. And when the sun starts shining, you'll use that electricity automatically. You're going to program your smart battery here to charge your battery. And then for the rest of that excess time, those kilowatt hours are still going to go back onto the grid, and you're still going to get your net energy metering credits for those excess kilowatt hours. And then in the evening, when you come home, you're going to avoid purchasing the most expensive electricity from the grid using the electricity that you have generated on your roof and stored in your batteries. All right, one other thing I'd like to point out here is that once you have batteries or an electric vehicle or an electric heat pump, you are eligible for actually some cheaper electricity prices from Edison. And so I know there's a lot of numbers up here, but I'll draw your eyes to the most important. So these are some examples here. These are in the summer. You can see here that in the evening during the week, this is a pretty typical time of use rate for Edison. You'd be paying about 41 cents in the evening. And then once you move over to this time of use prime rate, by adopting these new technologies, your rates are lower. So just something to think about there. And this makes sense when we return to this idea of load shifting. Remember, you're going to be charging your battery first, and then you're going to be sending the excess kilowatt hours back to the grid, because here, this time later in the afternoon, is when you're going to be getting the highest value for those kilowatt hours that you're sending back onto the grid. So that's the economic reason for that breakdown there. All right, so just a reminder here that load shifting batteries are exciting for us because it does reduce the greenhouse gas impacts of your electricity usage. All right, so I gave you kind of a high level here, and there's a lot of people here, I'll just stress this again, that know a lot about the technologies, and we had one brave soul to come up and represent all of this industry. And so to explain all about batteries, please welcome, it's Glazer, Daniel Glazer.
All right, thank you very much, April and CEC, for putting this on in Southern California Edison, and all the other partners out here. It's good to see a healthy crowd, so thank you guys. Oops. So my name is Dan Glazer. I'm with Panasonic. I'm a sales engineer. Tonight I'm going to be going over fundamentals of solar and storage. My main goal is to not see any glazed eyes out here. It is the tech stuff, but hopefully it's the bare basics that you guys need to know. I'm going to leave this up here just for a second. If anybody wants my contact info, I don't give this out very often, but feel free to take a snapshot of that. I traveled light here tonight. I don't have any materials or anything like that, but happy to address your questions later on tonight. And definitely there's a huge pool of talented contractors out here as well, so feel free to use them tonight as well. So these are the concepts we're going to cover. You know, solar fundamentals. It sounds like most people here have a solar system in their home, which is great. Kind of a question on top of that, for those that do have solar, did you know that you wouldn't have power when the grid's down when you bought your system? Good. The people around on the outside here are doing their job then. So we're going to go over why energy storage, how does it work, and then the big question, AC versus DC coupled systems. So I don't have to spend too much time on this, but this is the basic operation of solar, right? You're grid tied. As April was explaining, you send power back to the grid, net energy metering. Life is great when the grid is there, right? When the grid goes down, unfortunately, your inverter isolates itself, and now you lose power in your house. So what you do, energy storage. So that's one of the basic fundamentals of why energy storage, right? Backup power. As was mentioned earlier, there's a lot of stuff going on globally, climate change, a lot of natural disasters. Forefront right now is obviously California with the wildfires, especially up north, unfortunately. So there's a lot of demand and interest, and it's only gonna drive the technology to a higher potential and continue to drive down the cost, which is great. I'm gonna skip this, sorry April, I double did your slides here. So how does it work? what are all these terms, right? Kilowatts, amps, kilowatt hours, everything here. We're going to kind of go through some of the basics. So I work with folks on a national level, and I'm still shocked at the number of contractors that, or salesmen in solar that don't explain the concept or know a kilowatt versus a kilowatt hour. So this is really key basic fundamentals here, right? On the very basic level, kilowatt is power, right? That's how much instantaneous energy or power that you have, right? Kilowatt hours are energy. So for the analogy of like a car, kilowatt hours is going to be essentially the distance you can go, and then kilowatts is going to be how fast you can go 0 to 60 on the very basic level. What does that mean in your house? Kilowatts is basically how many loads you can run at one time, or if you have extremely high loads or big appliances like a pump or air conditioner or things like that that have a lot of surge power needs, kilowatts are going to be the number that you want to focus on. Kilowatt hours is basically how many batteries am I going to put there in my house for how many days of autonomy or hours of autonomy am I going to have with my battery storage system. So and the big difference as you're getting quotes or looking at energy storage is typically it's going to be sold in kilowatt hours. A lot of times people throw terms out there like dollars per kilowatt hour, whereas solar, you're looking at dollars per watt. So AC versus DC coupled, kind of a big mystery out there, I think, for a lot of people, really confusing. So I tried to simplify this as much as possible. So solar panels, they produce DC power. Batteries, they store that energy as DC power. But what do you use in your house? AC, right? All of our electrical grid is on AC power, and that's what our appliances use. So that's the very basic fundamental there. DC coupled systems, it's a simpler system in a lot of ways where it's only going to have one inverter. You're going to have that same inverter is changing your DC power from your solar and storing it in the battery without converting it. So it's a slightly more efficient system most of the time with the DC coupled system. And then it's great for a new install. If you don't already have PV, it's a great way to go because it is a little bit simpler and it's a little bit higher efficient. For AC coupled, it's great because it's flexible. If you already have a solar system at your house, that's generally going to be the way that you want to go because there's two separate systems then. You have your PV system and then you have your energy storage system separate from that. So they can operate independently. And like I said, it is a little bit more flexible. It's going to have slightly lower efficiency than the DC coupled system just because you're converting that energy back and forth a few more times between AC and DC systems. The market is still kind of split. A lot of people are doing one or the other or both. So there's a lot of pros and cons. So definitely recommend that you discuss, with your installer or contractor on, what might be the best option for you. This is the basic diagram of a DC coupled system. So you're going to have your PV array that's feeding into your DC coupled system here. These are batteries. That's an inverter, and then you have your backed up loads here. And then you're connected to your grid over on this side. Versus an AC coupled system where you have your PV, and then you're also going to have a PV inverter separate. And then you're going to have everything tying into your energy storage system here, which also has an inverter. So AC coupled, another basic rule of thumb is it's 2 inverters. So can I back up my whole home? And this was a little bit more dramatic in PowerPoint, but this is just PDF. The answer is maybe. I know that's kind of, some people are, you want to back up your home, right? And that's kind of the message that some folks are putting out there. Really you can, but it comes down to really big important point here is budget, home size, the location. I mean, here we are in a very climate neutral part of the country, obviously. And then what do you really need? Do you need the jacuzzi running in an outage? Do you need several air conditioning units? What do you really need in an outage? Obviously coffee. Luckily, that's not a huge draw there. So you can, but generally, what we're seeing nationally is people are still relatively budget conscious and they're going to get a system that's big enough to run their house and power their lights, their refrigeration units, maybe AC if you're in like Nevada or something like that. And then a garage door, Wi-Fi, and power your phone and everything. So really trying to keep it conservative. And of course, the first thing you want to do is obviously conserve your energy consumption and get energy efficient appliances as well. This was another question we get relatively often is, battery degradation and battery health. And this is really looking at lithium ion, and this is by no means anybody's product up here. It's just a generic degradation curve. But these are the main factors of what affect battery degradation. So you have your charge and your discharge rate. That's, how many things are you flipping on at once in your house? That's how much discharge you're going to get. The temperature conditions, the depth of discharge, and how many cycles, if you're cycling multiple times a day, once a year, plays a big difference into it. But on the very basic level, a battery is kind of like anything. The more you use it, the more it's going to degrade and faster it's going to degrade. So in this very simple example, you can see where you have only a 20% depth of discharge. You might have 90% of your battery health, for example, after 10 years. Whereas if you have 90% depth of discharge, you might be getting down into the 70-ish or 60-ish range after 10 years. And each manufacturer typically specifies what that degradation is going to be. So pay attention to that and definitely consult with your installer on what might be the best depth of discharge or reserve that you want in your battery. That's it. Thank you very much. I'll be here to answer questions after.
Great, thank you so much, Dan. So now that Dan got us all really excited about batteries, now we want to know how much they cost. And I'm not going to tell you how much they cost because maybe Dan got the point across that there's a lot of variation in the market in terms of how much you need. But there are a few kickers that can help make this a little bit more affordable. The first is you probably already were able to take advantage of this incentive when you went solar. So the federal tax credit does also apply to solar tied energy systems, as long as solar tied storage systems, as long as you are 100% charging your batteries with your solar system. So key thing to note here, we're still in this 30% rate here, but I'm sure that all of the contractors in the room will say this is going to happen in January or February, so setting your expectations there. Prove me wrong, everyone. That's dropping down to, 26% there. So still excellent in terms of bringing down the cost. This next incentive isn't quite as straightforward. The story here is, it's called the Self-Generation Incentive Program, or the SGIP program. And I can't tell you exactly how much this incentive is, but I can tell you what it has been. So most recently, so the way that this incentive is structured, it's per watt hour. So the last payment available was at 25 cents per watt hour. And that means that if you're looking at, a 13.5 kilowatt hour battery, you'd save some, significantly there. So that level has been fully subscribed to. So this is a state level rebate that's administered by our local utilities. And I've really pushed here, like, hey, utilities, like, what's it going to be? Come on, you can tell me. But the California Public Utilities Commission hasn't released the information on exactly what that incentive is going to be in the next year, but I'm very confident that it will be probably just a step down or comparable to what it was most recently. So let's just go with that thought experiment. If it is 20 cents per watt hour, then you would also be able to save $2,700 for the same battery. This program does have some restrictions, so you are agreeing to participate in that load shifting or cycling of your batteries, and you're agreeing to do that a certain number of times a year. This isn't as relevant for homeowners, perhaps. Well, it is relevant for low-income homeowners. But I think this is exciting that there is a lot of money coming from the state to support the growth of energy storage. And so I'll just go over this very quickly. And it could be useful information for some of our agencies or nonprofit partners in the room. So there are some very high level incentives coming online that will pretty much pay for an entire storage system if you are a nonprofit or a government agency, and I'm probably going to get some of these details wrong. I'm looking at Rondi, but the main idea here is that in these Tier 1 and Tier 2 high fire danger areas, the state has really decided that there needs to be money invested here to bring energy storage to low income and to critical services. So, if you're aware of some critical services here, I've already called the Montecito Fire Department, for instance, and said, hey, I think there might be a way for you to get some storage at a very low price. This is very hard to read. These incentives will also be available for low-income areas, and so there's a sign. There's a low-income area. So this is what I'm talking about here. Local government agencies, state agencies, nonprofit, and small businesses may all be eligible for these very, very elevated incentives for battery storage. Okay, you guys are doing great. We have just a couple more quick presentations. Next up, I'd like to invite Sean Jacobson from Swell Energy to tell us about his company's plan for a virtual power plant.
I'd like to start by just saying, wow, this is an incredible turnout. So thank you everybody for showing up. And it's also a pleasure to see a lot of familiar faces and new faces. I've been doing energy work in Santa Barbara for about 15 years. And so it's great to still be part of the cause to support climate change initiatives, but also resiliency and energy storage. So thank you again. Swell Energy, we're launching an initiative called the 805 Energy Security Initiative. And just real quick about who Swell Energy is. We've been in business for 5 years. We provide utility grid services. These are services that the utility needs, such as demand response. So if anyone signed up for programs where an air conditioner, for instance, might get turned off during a high demand period, it's the same type of program, but instead of an air conditioner getting turned off and you getting hot in your house, our battery will actually turn on and provide that service to the utility so that they don't have to have brownouts and so forth throughout the power plant. So that's really the premise of a virtual power plant, is it provides distributed energy resources in a different model than that of the traditional model, which is a power plant in remote locations. So with those utility grid services, we then turn those into consumer offers, both for commercial. So some of those agencies that can take advantage of these rebate programs, which are actually grid service programs, or consumers who want to get energy storage in their home for maybe to back up their house, but can get these additional incentives to make it more affordable. And then we leverage those incentives to provide low-cost financing, so no upfront. Some of you might be familiar with leases, similar type programs where it's an energy security service, kind of first of its kind. There's a couple other companies doing it where, just like your security service or other services at your home, you're also paying for backup energy on a monthly basis. So one option to help increase the adoption of energy storage. So just to back up a little bit, many of you are probably aware of some of the proceedings that happened locally here for the last, 5+ years, where there was one main utility line feeding Santa Barbara, and that has since been updated thanks to Edison, and it's very secure. But that was definitely kind of a push for a lot of the local citizens to talk with Edison, figure out ways to make the end of the line, if you will, grid more secure. So that happened. Shortly after that, an Aliso Canyon gas leak, if you remember that, happened. Most of the electricity that we're using right now is natural gas. I would actually venture to say all of it is from natural gas power plants right now. So you can imagine that if there's a major shortage in natural gas at this moment, that there could be a major shortage of power supply as well. And so that led Edison to actually put out an RFP, which I'll talk about next. We heard about public power shutoff programs. Before I say that though, the Mandalay generating station and some of the natural gas power plants down in Oxnard, which many of you probably enjoy the beaches down there, there was a huge uproar as well from the community to not build more power plants as well as out in Goleta. So there's solutions, but not that many. And so what we did is try to provide a local solution. So Edison put out a bid to find different solutions. It's like the community says no get natural gas plants. Well, what's the solution? And so Swell, along with a number of other larger utility companies, landed a contract with Edison. It's for a demand response program. We're what's called behind the meter. So we provide services at your house or in your building. All the other companies are providing energy storage solutions on the grid level, kind of on the other side of the meter. Still helps resiliency, helps the community, helps with energy storage and solving the natural gas crisis, but not necessarily your home backing it up. So we have this contract with Edison. What that means is that actually they're going to pay us for that service, and we're in turn going to turn that into incentives for homeowners and businesses to make this a lower cost, more affordable solution to bring to the market. So we have a big goal of about 5,000 homes. So hopefully people will add batteries. And it doesn't have to just be us bringing those batteries to the market. Actually, every solar company in the room has the opportunity to work with us with different types of technologies. So all we have to do is to be able to communicate with those batteries, and you have to enroll in the program, and we can offer generous incentives to participate. So again, this is the kind of the traditional model of grid power versus the distributed energy model. Every house being its own generator and not being completely off grid, but actually working together to provide a true virtual power plant. And this slide actually is an image of a Tesla Powerwall app showing your solar production, charging up the battery, then peak time hits. The solar is getting highest credit back to the utility through net metering, and then your house is completely powered off the battery during that peak window. So our product is called the Energy Shield. And again, it offers the time of use controls. It does backup power. Yes, it can do whole house. We recommend being careful about your selections. We want to make sure that you have power for a long time, but we do provide, consultations around that. You're connected to this network, this demand response program. So we do manage that with the utility. Low monthly payments, residential and commercial, and it's for battery only plus solar plus storage, and that can be retrofitting existing systems. Battery only might apply to somewhere like the library right now. We could have 5 Tesla Powerwalls powering this circuit so that during an outage, this room could actually be backed up. So just a use case. So just again, some examples. We already kind of got this earlier, but there are a lot of batteries coming on the market. It's a very new market, although a lot of the solar companies have been doing it for a very long time. We didn't have this type of community interest or state incentives until very recently. So again, some of the other community benefits is it is going to provide a more reliable local electricity supply by distributing that energy. Again, if there's everyone has solar and batteries, we can actually get to this 100% renewable goal because we don't have to bring in natural gas from other places during those evenings. So that's definitely a goal. Disaster preparedness, resiliency, both for your house, your neighborhood, maybe local community centers. Regional air quality, you talked about diesel. Workforce opportunities, we're going to need a lot of installers. So encourage any of the local installers that aren't already participating with us to participate with us. We need you. We need you to hire people. We need to bring people in. Ideally, we're not bringing folks in from out of state, but if we have to, we will. So, if anyone needs a job, we'll certainly have work. And then climate change mitigation, as discussed. So that's my presentation. Some contact information. One of my colleagues is in the back. Happy to talk to you. I'm also happy to talk to you as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Sean. And just to stay a little bit topical here, so this RFP that Sean just described and Swell was selected to deliver service for, there's also a project that is being considered in the city of Goleta, and this was just covered in the Independent. So when you read that article, you can connect the dots that these are all part of the same RFP from Edison to bring more distributed energy and storage to our region. All right, great. So Our last set of speakers here, I'm very pleased to introduce our local government representatives that are working hard to increase the resilience of our communities. Please join me in welcoming Alelia Parentau and Marissa Hanson-Lopez.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Marissa Hanson-Lopez. I'm a program specialist in the Sustainability Division at the County of Santa Barbara. And I'm just going to echo what several people have said. It's really great to see so many people out here tonight interested and engaged in this topic. So thanks for being here. Resiliency in the face of planned and unplanned outages is definitely something that's front of mind for local governments. And the county's taken a number of steps to prepare both itself as an organization and the community members for those circumstances. And I'm just going to talk about a bit about what we're doing at the county. So our Board of Supervisors very recently adopted a countywide strategic energy plan. And the goal of that plan was to stimulate renewable energy development in the county. And to do that, we identified barriers that currently exist to renewable energy development, and then come up with strategies to try to overcome or mitigate those barriers. Two strategies that came out of that plan and that we'll be undertaking over the next year are really relevant to tonight's topic. First, solar plus storage permitting. There aren't storage permitting is very, very new, and there aren't really best practices around those. So we're going to be working with other neighboring jurisdictions to kind of develop best practices and streamline the permitting of solar plus storage systems on residential homes. Secondly, an energy assurance plan is something that we'll be undertaking as well. And the point of that will be to identify critical facilities throughout the county. That would be things like schools or warming and cooling centers, places that people will gather in times of emergency, and that would be good candidates for solar plus storage backup, and be able to operate when the grid goes down. Oops, excuse me. Oh boy.
And just go backward.
We're way off. Last one, thanks. Secondly, we'll also be updating the county's general plan, the safety element of the general plan, and natural disasters and their impacts are going to be front of mind for that. Some work that we've done on our own facilities up at the Betarabia campus in Santa Maria. They are installing a solar system on some parking structures, as well as some battery storage that will be able to operate facilities for between 4 and 8 hours in the case of an outage. Fire Station 12, also up north, also has a solar system and battery backup, so they can maintain operations uninterrupted. All right. We've also established readysbc.org, where there are lots of great resources on how to prepare for public safety power shutdowns and emergency situations or even evacuations. You can also sign up for alerts in both English and Spanish, and those have come in handy a couple times for me. Oh, geez. Sorry, guys. Finally, and this is a little bit further out, but the county recently elected to join Monterey Bay Community Power, which is a community choice energy program. And so the service in Santa Barbara County won't start until spring of 2021, but Monterey Bay Community Power is working to develop a program to identify critical facilities and then provide funding for microgrids at some of the sites that they've identified. So we're hoping that the energy assurance plan that we'll be working on that will identify some critical facilities will kind of help inform Monterey Bay's program, and we'll be able to bring some of those resources into the county. So those are some of the things the county are working on, and I'm going to pass it off to Alelia to talk about some of the work at City of Santa Barbara.
Everybody's so tall. Apparently I'm really short. I'm so excited to echo some of the things other people have said. This is crazy. We're standing room only. There are people out in the hall. This is so great. We obviously need this kind of event. So I'm Lelia Parento. I'm the city's energy program supervisor, and I have got to tell you that the last 2 years have been an all-out sprint. We have been sprinting ever since council made its 100% renewable electricity goal in June of 2017, and we have not stopped. So similarly to the county, we have developed a strategic energy plan that was really our roadmap to getting to that 100% level. And it identified a whole slew of strategies, and we're already working on the first of those strategies. So number one was an energy and climate program. The city, before the strategic energy plan, had one energy employee, that was me, and my focus was HVAC and lights. Really nothing to do with resiliency, nothing to do with the community responsiveness. I did get to put in a solar array here or there. And so really formalizing that energy and climate program and hiring some staff to help and address all of the needs that you guys are going to have as you try to permit solar, make your homes more resilient, and make sure that we're taking care of our community and thriving. So that was number one. We've just done that, and that's very exciting. Next, also permit streamlining. You know, we did a lot of stakeholder engagement when doing our strategic energy plan, and we heard you loud and clear. You were having, whether real or perceived, issues with our permitting process. And we have some folks from our building and safety team in the back who have been working really hard to identify obstacles and find ways to streamline that process or to communicate better about the process. And one really exciting thing that we're going to embark on together is to develop some design standards for battery storage and maybe even solar down the line, so that you don't have to go and hire a designer to design your system, and you know you get a design that is right the first time. So we'll be working on that, and we're excited to share that with you. And also, like Marissa, we've been really focusing on our critical facilities, because when that power goes out, we want to make sure that we are satisfying our duty to serve you, our community. And so we've been actively assessing our critical facilities. That includes fire stations, police stations, community centers, because they are a really important hub for information and engagement, etc. And so we've already put solar on 4 of our 8 fire stations, with an active look at battery storage at each of those locations moving forward. Next, we also are doing a community choice and energy program. We did it a little bit differently. We're going it alone. So Santa Barbara Clean Energy will also launch in spring of 2021. And why it was one of the reasons that it was important for us to go alone was because we really wanted to make sure we built resilient facilities here locally. And so we hopefully will be able to use some of that excess revenue from becoming your power provider to build storage and solar and other renewable generation assets locally that can help bolster our resilience. We are also exploring incentives for solar and storage. We understand that the upfront cost of solar and storage systems is very onerous. And so we want to figure out a way that we can help tip those projects into feasibility. And so we will be offering incentives in the nearish future to help you work on those systems. And then one strategy that was identified in the strategic energy plan that is really sort of far out for a lot of people to wrap their heads around is the smart energy zone. We are going to be developing a living laboratory for all things energy and climate related in Santa Barbara. And so we've identified a part of town that we really like because it has every customer class. It has industrial, educational, government, low-income residential, and the list goes on. And that is Yananali to Sola, Milpas to State. So there's a big square there that we want to do something out of the box. We want to test marketing campaigns. We want to test new technologies. We want to test incentives and see how they work for that customer base before we roll them out citywide. So we're really excited about that. And then lastly, you know, if you're working in this space, you know that environmental justice is one of the biggest hurdles and opportunities that we are facing right now. And so we are really trying to engage our vulnerable populations as we move forward in our emergency and resilience planning. And so bilingual disaster outreach and engagement has become a really big topic for us to focus on. And so I welcome your suggestions on how to make that a better program, but we are actively working on that.
Thank you so much, both. So ladies and gentlemen, I hit an announcement board like in a fiery moat that was really hard to get to. I'm going to take a risk here. And if you feel that you work in this space and you have something that you feel that we have not covered today that will be very pertinent to homeowners in the region that would like to install energy storage, you can raise your hand, and Michael or Jen, will you, let's see, do we have a microphone ready?
No, you said
Okay.
we didn't need it. I can go get it.
So in the back, you want to come up here? Oh, or you want to stand up? All right, ready? You have a minute.
I'm a local contractor. I know a lot of people here that have solar don't have the money to build a battery backup system. There is a manufacturer called SMA America. You may be familiar with the name. They have a product line called a secure power supply. And during the daylight hours, when the sun is shining and the grid is down, it will give you 2,000 watts of power for each unit. Depending on how large your existing system is, you can simply change the inverter without getting batteries. Of course, when the sun goes down, you're left to your own abilities there. You can power a refrigerator, you can do area lighting, you can charge things up so you can engage the night without spending about $15,000 to $20,000.
Okay, thank you very much. And you know, this SMA inverter option was really exciting to me when I heard about it too. And there have been people in our community that have benefited from this technology, but unfortunately, due to the newest electrical codes, that option is no longer legal, right? So thank you for a blast from the past, and I wish that that was still relevant. Okay, you want to go for it?
Sure. I'm one of the few people in the room that has a battery backup on my home, and I love all the material that has been presented. The one thing I wanted to add that is, when you see the prices of this stuff, understand that load shifting that they talked about between the high price and the low price saves you a lot of money a year. Like solar saves you a lot, the battery saves you even more. So factor that into any calculation of costs.
Do you want to come up here and talk more about your battery? Do you want to talk into the microphone? You can have, okay. Can I interview you? Okay. So, sir, thank you for coming up here. So, has your battery ever turned on during a power outage, and can you tell us about that?
I have not had it very long. It's been about 3 months, so no power outages, thankfully.
What was the most difficult part about adding a battery to your system, and did you put it in at the same time as your solar?
So I put it in about 2 years after the solar, but I purchased it at the same time as my solar from the particular installer. So I chose that installer because they also knew about batteries and because I was eligible for the SCHIP program. So the economics of it were basically, you know, the battery was about $5,700. The install and all the extra equipment that goes, this is a Powerwall, a Tesla Powerwall, and all the extra equipment that goes with it was about more than I expected, about $6,000. But the 30% solar, it's 30% federal credit, and then the $4,700 I got from SCHIP, you know, is a little more than you get now, but I went down to like $5,000 for the whole system. And then the beautiful part that I wanted to really touch on is that I've done my calculations. The app is like I love that thing. The Powerwall app is really exciting, and there's a cost-saving mode in it, which automatically does what you saw on the screen. It powers your home during the peak pricing, and it charges during less pricing automatically. And I've calculated it out just in the 2 months I've used it, and I'll probably save about $500 or $600 per year on my electricity bill. So that's almost as much as my solar saves.
And what is your address for our power outage? Just kidding.
Free phone charging.
Do you have any last comments? Because we all want to learn from you. Any last things?
no, really, I just am a
Run
huge
this
advocate
up
for
and
this
down
stuff.
the center
Actually,
aisle.
me and
Don't touch
my
anything, just give it
colleagues
to the
are
person.
from the Slow Climate Coalition, the San Luis Obispo Climate Coalition. We came to talk to you because we want to, honestly, because we want to have this event or something similar up in San Luis Obispo. We've got tons of interest already, and this proves that, gosh, it's huge. So.
What's your name?
Oh, I'm Justin Bradshaw. I'm the outreach coordinator for the Slow Climate Coalition.
Okay, thank you so much, Justin. Let's give Justin a hand. Okay, sir.
Actually, one question. I was just saying, I understood before that you said you only get this support and not by low-cost electricity from the grid. Now, I understood that you were just saying that he also charges his batteries in low-cost times from the grid. Is that correct? Did I understand that correctly? Did I?
Oh, sorry.
My question was, did I understand correctly that you also charge your batteries with
sir.
low-cost power from the grid?
No, my Powerwall has to be charged from the solar, and the reason for that is the solar federal incentive. It's required. However, if you don't have solar, you can still get a battery without solar and charge it from the grid. It's just you don't get any incentives.
Okay, great. Another quick announcement. Aaron, you have something quick?
Yeah.
Do you want to use a mic?
Yeah, sure. So I'm the owner, founder of Good Energy Solar right down the street, and we're deep in this battery space. It is not easy. It's like the permitting, it's getting harder and harder, and January 1st might be a whole new level. So just do your homework. All batteries are not created equal. Some will last a really long time, some won't if you cycle them daily or multiple times per day. And yeah, just give your contractors a little break. This is like a huge tsunami that we're taking on. Suddenly, like there was almost no batteries 2 years ago, and now almost every other system's AC or DC coupled. So be nice to us. We're working really hard to repower the world and shift wealth back to you guys. So cheers.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, we have maybe time for 2 more quick things. Okay.
Hey folks, just to expand on what Aaron said, not all batteries are created equal, and it's important to look at the chemistry of the battery, specifically for the safety as well as some of the ethical concerns. Cobalt is one of the worst mined minerals, primarily in the Congo by children. So just keep in mind, what we're doing this for and kind of the environmental social justice side of it too.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else really have something you want to share? Thanks, Cash.
Hi, my name's James Landon. I've been working in this space for a long time on boats, primarily electric boats. And a month ago, I think today or yesterday or something, we had 1 million people without power. So we repurposed what we do with boats and come up with a solution for houses. There's a different way that we operate or build a system from an AC coupled system or a DC coupled system, and it's downstream of everything. So you don't actually tie to the grid, but you make a solar battery. We do it out of lead acid batteries, pure lead carbon batteries, highest recycling you can get. Lithium, I don't believe can be recycled at this time. Like they probably have provisions for future recycling, but there are issues, as you're saying, with lithium. We chose pure lead carbon because it's an advanced lead acid battery that well, I wrote out a number of things. They're fairly low cost of ownership, low carbon footprint, fully recyclable, long life expectancy, doesn't backfeed the grid, compatible with these existing systems, non-combustible in fire zones, and a variety of other different things, but there are other solutions out there.
All right. Sorry, I'm making your job difficult.
Yes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, can I get a nod if we're ready to walk around and talk to these experts? Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much to all of our experts in the room. And ladies and gentlemen, the solar contractors and batteries folks have tables around the room. Enjoy. We have the room for about half an hour. Thank you so much.